Welcome to a tutorial on comma usage. My name is Virginia and I will be assisting you. What you need to know before getting started is that commas are needed for a number of reasons, and the objective of this tutorial is to show you how to effectively use them in your writing. What you'll need before getting started is a working draft of writing, and that can be in any form. The first rule of using commas is combining it with a coordinating conjunction. You combine two independent clauses together by using a comma and then any of the coordinating conjunctions listed above. These are also called fanboys, as most people know them. The next rule of comma usage is after an introductory phrase. And one way that I tell my students to think about this is find the subject of your sentence, and if there's any phrase or clause before it, put a comma in between the two. Another place that you need to use a comma is if you have what's called an additional information phrase. So this is the kind of phrase that can come in the middle of a sentence, and the phrase needs to be sectioned off with commas on each side of that phrase. The next way to use a comma is when you're listing things. So I like cats, comma, dogs, comma, and rabbits. The next way to use a comma is when you're separating two or more coordinate adjectives. So say you wanted to describe someone as being tall and lanky, you would say the tall, comma, lanky person. The next way to use a comma is at the end of the sentence when you're separating contrasting coordinate elements or ideas that kind of contrast. So looking at the first example, he was merely ignorant, not stupid. You use a comma to differentiate between the two. Another way to use a comma is to set off a phrase at the end of your sentence. So looking at the first example, you can see how it works well because you know who's talking. You want to make sure that you always are specific with who's talking. So looking at the second one, you can see that it's confusing because you don't know who is doing the laughing. The next rule of comma usage kind of goes along with the listing, except it's for specific purposes. So say you have geographical names like a city and then a state, you put a comma in between them. Items in dates like after the day, before the year, you have a comma. In addresses as well, you put a comma after the street name and then after the city. Finally, if you have titles in the names, like if someone has an MD or a PhD, you put a comma after the name before their title. And finally, you use a comma to shift between what you're saying and if you're going to use a quote. So you explain what your quote is about, then you have a comma, and then you use the quote itself. Comma usage is really important because it does a number of things. It provides clarity for your readers, it keeps them on track in how you want them to read your ideas, and it enables you to say your ideas in new ways because you're able to create more dynamic sentences. These rules are very important inside of the classroom as well as outside because they enable you to keep your ideas clear, focused, and readable. They also enable you to vary your sentence structure and explain your ideas in a new way.